Don Farrell, who is the founder and president of Fresh Revenues. And he is going to give us an interesting presentation on his background. He's a real entrepreneur that specializes in the sales training business. And he is going to talk specifically, after his introduction, he's going to talk specifically to some of the questions that you folks have submitted. So Don, my good friend, please take it away.
Thank you, Professor. Hello, everyone. You were good enough to submit a dozen questions, and if we have time at the end, you're going to wave your hand and unmute, and you're going to ask your question. Cool? All right, let's give credit to Allie Peak, Doressa Brooks, Landon Gray Smith, cool name, Elena or Alana Lamar, and then we had two today from Hannah and Landon. So thanks for submitting your questions. My intent with these things is always to give you the content you guys are looking for. So this really helps me big time, so I appreciate it. So let's get right into it. Let me tell you all the different questions and we'll go back and answer them. The two that came in today, the first one was, how did you even think of starting this business? And the second question Hannah had was, where and how do you get your ideas? Landon asked, what made you pick this career? And secondly, do you ever get tired of doing this? Good question. The other questions are, what will be the lasting effect of the pandemic on the hospitality world? The next one is best advice to give someone who wants to start their own business. Next question is, when did I know that I wanted to be an entrepreneur? Question 8 is, did I go to the bank for a loan or did I do it through cash flow? And then I've got a long setup here that I won't go into right now, but I will get into later about someone who wants to do something really specific in Memphis and she wants to know if it's a good place. Next question is, after running a world-renowned company, what is my focus for this new company? And the last question is a real good one too. When someone says Fresh Revenues, what one word would I like my clients to think of that best describes my company and the culture I wish to achieve? Good questions, eh, Professor?
Very good.
All right, here we go. Let's start off with the first question, the pandemic question. Your question is specifically, how did it go? What will the lasting effect of the pandemic be on the hospitality world? And I made some bullet points. I'm not going to read from this, but I'm going to try to keep myself on track, all right? Because I can get off skew here, and I want to make sure I stay on track. So the pandemic, first and foremost, and I think this came from Allie. I don't think hotels will come back at full speed until the airline business is able to get back to full speed. And I heard today that several airlines just laid off 30,000 people because they couldn't get PPP money. So as a result, they told the government ahead of time, we're going to shut ourselves down if you can't get us some funding. And the government did not. So there are 30,000 jobs. I think I heard the same number from Disney being laid off. And that's a shame because Disney gave it a real good shot. They really tried to make it work and they couldn't. So until we come up with a cure for COVID, you're not going to see the business peak like it did in 2019. Especially hurt are those hotels and conference centers that count on meetings business. And I think the permanent thing that's going to be taken from this pandemic is you've got leaders of different corporations saying, hey, for a whole year, we Zoomed our meetings. Let's continue to do it that way, even though we can come together and there's a COVID cure. I personally think that you get a lot more from a face-to-face interaction with an audience or an individual. So I think slowly but surely they'll come back to face-to-face meetings, but you're always going to have a certain percentage that are going to stay with the distance education, distance communication. So I think that'll be a permanent effect of the pandemic. We've already seen it. The hotels that are responding and rebounding first are those that are regionally located, drivable destinations. And Memphis is one of those. I mean, we've got Beale Street, we've got Graceland. People want to come see those things, and it's drivable from a lot of different markets. So the weekend market, the leisure market is responding first and foremost. The corporate consumer will be next, and then last will be the group's piece of this whole pie, all right? So that's kind of the pandemic. Having said that, I've been doing a lot of webinars trying to convince people not to give up selling their hotel. there is a solution that you have for your clients and prospects that can solve their problems. So why not try to communicate with those guys? Because Chris, I keep getting calls like, we can't make sales calls in this kind of climate. Well, you know what? You have to. Nothing happens until somebody sells something. So you got to be selling. You've got solutions for people's problems. All right, second question. What is the best advice for starting your own business? And let me put an asterisk here for all of you. If you asked 10 entrepreneurs how to start a business and why to start a business, you're going to get 10 different answers. And I encourage you to keep asking those questions of the different entrepreneurs. You're going to take what if you like something I have to say, you're going to take it and keep it. If you don't, you're going to throw it away. And the same thing's going to happen with every other individual you talk to who's an entrepreneur. So, best advice for starting your own business. First and foremost, expect to put in many, many, many hours making this business work. I belong to a Vistage group. And for those of you that don't know what a Vistage is, it's a group of CEOs and entrepreneurs that come together once a month. And behind closed doors, we share our problems, we share our challenges, and there's experts at the table that can give you quote unquote free advice. It costs to belong to Vistage, so it's not totally free. But these individuals are giving you their free advice on how to solve a problem or a challenge. And the number of people that show up at those kinds of meetings who are brand new entrepreneurs who are doing it part-time, I don't think you can ever be successful that way. So plan on many, many, many hours dedicated to making your new business get off the ground. The other mistake I see people making is they want to start their business when everything is absolutely perfect. If you guys are taking notes, and I hope you are, Landon, grab a pen, grab some paper, Landon. Here we go. Lean Canvas. I may have mentioned this the last time we were together, Chris. Lean Canvas is a concept developed by a guy by the name of Ash, A-S-H, I think he's got an E at the end, Ash Maurya, M-A-U-R-Y-A. And Ash is a serial entrepreneur, especially in the high-tech space. And his suggestion is do what he calls a lean canvas. You literally have a legal size sheet of paper, and on there are 10 different disciplines, everything from marketing to the financials, to who your competition is, to what makes you unique. That lean canvas literally should take you no more than 15 minutes to complete. If you're taking more than 15 minutes, you're spending too much time on it. So I did this several years ago, probably 2-3 years ago for the first time. And the first one I got done, I said, oh, I'm not happy with that. I did another one, did another one, did another one. By the fourth one, spending 15 minutes total on each one, I came up with the real nucleus of a company, of an idea, and how to execute it. So check that out, because it helps you develop your company without everything being perfect. If software companies didn't go to market before the product was absolutely perfect without stuff in it that doesn't work, they would never go to market. They purposely put a product out there knowing full well that 8% of it, 10% of it isn't right yet, but they're gonna fix that later. If you wait to go to market, it'll be too late. So that's what high tech is doing. And to some degree, we can do that. We should do that if you're an entrepreneur. All right, this is advice I give everybody. And I don't know if a lot of entrepreneurs feel this way, but I know I do. So I've had 2 companies. The first company was called Signature, and it started in the spare bedroom of my house. And it went on to become the largest training company in the world. I think Chris sent you some information on that. When I owned that big company, as a leader, I was responsible in my mind and made it quite known to everyone that first and foremost, revenues are king. Revenues feed the engine. If you're developing a business or a concept and you're focusing on the legal and you're focusing on the branding and you're focusing on the copywriting and the patent process, and you're giving this much time to the revenue acquisition, you're doing it wrong, because revenues can solve a lot of sins, meaning you can make mistakes if the revenues are there. If the revenues are not there, you can't afford to make mistakes. So make revenue generation the most important thing to you, and never relinquish that. Never delegate that full responsibility. You are the sales and revenue leader of your organization. The second thing I was most concerned with was to make sure that the business that we sold, we held on to. So it was my responsibility to take our large clients, the top 25, 30 organizations that represented about 60% of our portfolio in terms of revenues. I personally got to know those people and made sure the relationship was incredibly strong so that we didn't lose those people. In the process, and there's a question that I'll answer later, but I'll segue into it. And that is, I got most of my new ideas and ways of solving problems from my clients. I didn't come up with these ideas. I got it from them. And the only way to get it from them is to be out there in the real world with real problems, real challenges, finding out what the problems are and coming up with those solutions. So that was the other thing I did. And lastly, I wanted to make sure that the company had the kind of culture that I wanted it to have. Right next to revenues, there's nothing more important to me than the culture of the company. Plainly put, how we communicate with each other, how we treat each other, how people feel about our company. And here's just one quick story. I was at a marketplace, which is another way of saying a trade show. Mega people running around, and they hit your booth. And in this particular case, you got lots of people going by in the walkway, and this one individual stops another buddy of his, and he says, "Hey, this is the company I told you about. These guys are so cool." Well, needless to say, I came out from behind the booth and I said, "Hey, Don Farrell, how are you?" "Good, good. So you're a client of ours?" He said, No, I never became a client." "What are you talking about?" He said, "I applied for a job and you guys turned me down." I said, "And you still think we're cool?" He said, "Yeah, the way you communicated with me. The person called me and told me why I didn't get the job, and it helped me get the next job." He said, "You guys are cool." So in every single thing we did, it was my responsibility as the leader to make sure the culture was right. We treated people the right way. All right, so that's my best advice for starting your own business. Question 3, when did I know I wanted to be an entrepreneur? Well, the truth is, I'm washing pots and pans for Marriott. I then become a dishwasher because I got promoted. Now I'm working in different functions of the kitchen. And as good as Marriott is in terms of a training ground, same for Hilton products. Marriott and Hilton, they're the ones you want to grow from, you want to learn from. But as good as they were, as good as my bosses were, I always saw areas of opportunity and things that they were doing, and I'd say, I'm only a 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, but I wouldn't do it this way. I would do it this way. Let's see what happens. And people, there's 2 ways of learning. The first way is the right way. The second way is the wrong way. And as long as you're smart enough to know it's the wrong way, that can be an even more valuable education in terms of going forward and not making those same mistakes. I was able to see that in my first jobs. So I became entrepreneurial focused when I was washing pots and pans, to be honest with you. And what I wanted to do, Chris, you never heard this before, is I wanted to have my own restaurant where all the employees were friends, and if they couldn't get home because it was snowing out or because I was in Milwaukee and they had no place to sleep or whatever, we had bunks for those guys. We would feed those guys. We'd have a little health club for those guys. So that was my vision early on in being an entrepreneur. And it's funny how far from that I actually executed. But going back to those days, I knew I wanted to have my own business. And the truth is this. I wanted to have my own business, first and foremost, for the wrong reason. And that reason was, I want to be my own boss. All right, I can make mistakes just like the bosses I worked for. So why not do my own thing? And what you find out is, if you've got 10 clients, which I picked up 10 clients after about a course of a year, you have 10 bosses. So that part of the equation didn't work out for me. You don't really become your own boss. You're working for 10 people, all right? But the beautiful thing is, when you get to a certain point in your business, and 10 was the magic number for me, anything less than that, I was still a beggar. When I hit 10 clients, I could afford, and this is really important, I could afford to fire my client because they weren't paying attention. They weren't executing. And I would call them up and I would say, hey, so-and-so, I've been talking to you for the past few months. You've been a client of ours for 6 months and you're just not doing it, man. You're wasting your money. You're wasting our time. I'm calling you to fire you. And the person would typically say, well, wait, man, I love you guys. We're going to get our act together. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I'm like, look, I don't want to waste your time. I don't waste our time, your money. When you get your act together, you call us and we'll be your client again. So that drives the culture in your company to say, wow, the single most important thing to Don Farrell is not his American Express. It's doing the right things for the right reasons. And to me, that was probably the greatest thing that I didn't pre-plan, that I found out that an entrepreneur gets to do. You get to pick and choose the clients you want to do business with, eventually. Now, for me, it took, I'd be lying to you if I said it took less than 2 years. It took about 2 years before I could finally take my first sigh and say, wow, I think this thing's going to make it. But it took that long and a lot of hard work and a lot of commitment. All right, so let's go to question 4. Did I go to the bank to get a loan? This is, I don't know if you'll ever hear this story from anybody else, but here goes. So I'm literally 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old, I think at the most. No, I'm older than that. I'm 24, 25, 26 years old at the time. And I'm deciding to start my first company. And all I needed was $5,000. And I go to the bank and I say, hi, I want to borrow $5,000. And this guy's in a really good mood. And I'm saying, wow, you're in a good mood. What happened? He said, Don, we just merged with the 3rd largest bank in America. We are now part of the 3rd largest financial institution in America. He said, and that just happened today. And I'm thinking to myself, ooh, that bodes well for me. They got a bunch of money, right? So what does he tell me to do? He says, go back, come up with a business plan, see me in a week or 2 whenever you've got it done, and we'll review the business plan and we'll see about lending you $5,000. And I said, terrific. So sure enough, I went home and I produced a marketing plan this thick. And in 2 weeks' time, I'm sitting in front of him and I hand him the business plan and he reads every page of it in front of me. And he said, wow, this is really good. And he throws it on the corner of his desk and he says, but the problem is you don't have any collateral. So here's what we're going to do. Don, if you want to borrow money to be a restaurant, I'd be happy to lend you the money. But I'm not going to lend you money for what you want to do. And I said, let me get this straight. You're willing to invest in a restaurant, which I'm not even interested in investing in. And don't like 98% of all restaurants fail in the first year? Yeah. You feel better about me running a restaurant that I don't want to run than you do giving me money for the thing that I do want to do. Yeah, I wouldn't put it that way, Don Farrell, but that was the bottom line. So needless to say, I was turned off to banks. And it took probably 8, 9, 10 years before we got to a point where we had enough revenue coming in. And all of a sudden, banks are knocking on our door going, hey, we want to lend you money. And I was anti-bank. To some degree, I still am today. We did it through cash flow. We grew our business through the cash flow. We did it from day one. And this is my second company. I've been doing this since 1986. You do the math. But we haven't never gone to a bank and say we need to borrow money. We've done it through cash flow. Now, there are a lot of people who've gone to a bank and have been successful. I couldn't pull it off because I didn't have enough collateral in the early days. And then when they wanted to lend me money, I didn't need it. So that was my story on banks. So did I go to a bank to get a loan? Yes, I did, but I didn't get one and didn't want one after a while. All right, so let me set this up. The next one's a real long setup, but I got to do it right. So this individual said, I'm going to open my own hotel in Memphis that caters to the sports industry. I will have an on-site personal trainer, in-house gym, barber, beauty spa, ballrooms for proms, corporate and social events, in addition to a golf course that will hold PGA events, and the list goes on and on and on. She had a lot more to say that she wanted in her hotel. The question is, excuse me, the question is, do I think Memphis is the city that can support such a venue? All right, so let's start from the first square one here. You want to have a sports hotel. I always had the strategy and philosophy not to limit myself to a market segment because you're as successful as that market segment. And let's just focus on sports for a second. I was with Marriott. Marriott had national contracts with the football teams, national contracts with the basketball teams. If we didn't have them, Westin had them. So these are hard contracts for them to break, to say, yeah, I'll use your athletic hotel. You're an independent hotel, even if you've got a brand, unless it's a Marriott or a Westin or a Hyatt, or you've got something like the Peabody, they're probably not going to do business with you because they're afraid of the liability. They would rather do business with a Marriott, who they feel better about because they have more legal expertise. They have a lot more loss prevention things in place. They don't know how you're going to run your operation. So to try to steal business from your competition in Memphis when it comes to pro sports is going to be incredibly hard to impossible. Now, what's left? You've got college sports, you've got high school sports, you've got AAU sports. Again, when it comes to college, you're going to have a tough time beating the Peabody out of their rooms that they're getting from a lot of the college teams. The DoubleTree used to do some teams. The Holiday Inn would do like the referees and the umpires. So downtown's pretty much got it locked up. So what I'm suggesting is this: don't limit yourself to one market segment. Chris has heard me say this before. If I were to build a hotel today, I would make it a Holiday Inn and it would be a full service hotel. Let's just focus on the full service for a second. I like having more tools. I like having more bullets in my gun. I want to have meeting space. I want to have recreation space. I want to be doing business with 12, 14, 16 different market segments. Why? Because I can maximize the ability to make my hotel successful. If I hone in on 1, 2, or 3 market segments, I won't be as successful, especially during tough times. The market goes soft, we are in a recession, people cut back. You've got to have more eggs in your basket. You got to have more in your arsenal. The more you have, the more successful you can be. Now, there's a lot of operators out there that'll say, oh, no, I'm not building a full service hotel. You lose money in your restaurant. Well, if you don't know what you're doing, you do lose money in your restaurant. I think worst case scenario is if you know what you're doing, you break even in your restaurant, but you more than make up for it in your catering. That's where you make your money in food, in catering, all right? And then you make your money in bar, and of course you make the most of your money on the room side. So my suggestion is if you want to build a hotel, have as many market segments as you can tap into as possible. Don't just focus on 1, 2, or 3 market segments, all right? That's critically important for you. Marriott and Hilton have the best frequency programs. They have more loyalty, true loyalty from their consumer than any other brand, even Holiday Inn. Why? Because the truth of the matter is, if I'm a Holiday Inn potential guest, I don't know if this is a really good Holiday Inn or a really average one or even a poor Holiday Inn. They've got them. There's very few poor Marriotts. There's very few poor Hilton products. So from a consistency standpoint, they have the loyalty from their consumer. Having said that, I also believe that the greatest loyalty driver is not the frequency program. It's the special things we do. It's the culture in your hotel that drives the most loyalty. People would be willing not to stay in a Marriott or a Hilton if you give them a good reason to do so. I like the Holiday Inn brand. Why? Because I'll never forget the days when I was working at the front desk of my Marriott and we had a bowling convention come in, and literally it was a female bowling convention. So these women would come to the desk and they would say, hi, do you guys take JCPenney credit cards? Now, the people I worked with at the front desk were like, how stupid are these people? Why do we do business with these kind of people? Well, those are my kind of people, blue collar America. I love those people, right? So I'll never forget that. Marriott at the time especially had a feeling that we're kind of upper crust and we don't do business with bowling conventions, to be honest with you, kind of thing. I like those people. I want those people. And Holiday Inn lends itself to capturing more of that business. I hope that makes sense. All right, moving on. Let's see. What are the steps Oh, she had a part B to her question. She said, what are the steps I would take to building this hotel? The first thing is I would do a lean canvas. We just talked about that. So do the lean canvas and then do an extensive market research on the entire market. Where are all the market segments staying in the area that you're looking to build your hotel? And if you want to get an athletic business, that's fine. There's a bunch of high school business and AAU business. Let's talk about AAU for a second. Amateur Athletic Union. Both my kids played at a higher level of sports starting at 5 years old. As a result, they played through college. They loved it. It helped them mature. Even though my daughter went to Rhodes College, which is a hard school, I think she learned more out on a basketball floor than she did in a classroom. She learned how to win. She learned how to lose. She learned how to be a leader. She learned how to be successful under diversity. Those are things that are hard to get in a classroom, but she learned those things through sports. So I'm a big AAU fan. And what happens is hotels need business the most, typically, unless you're a destination like Orlando, typically during Easter week, Christmas week, Thanksgiving week, all those holiday weeks, hotels typically die. Why? Because they have a corporate-based business, and as a result, corporations don't travel those weeks. But guess who does? AAU. Why? Because there's not school in session. So these teams will travel. In my son's case, he played baseball. We would drive from Memphis to Oklahoma City. We would drive to Atlanta. We would drive to St. Louis. We would drive to all these different destinations, and we needed hotels. So AAU is a really good market. So who's doing that business today? I can't tell you because I haven't looked at it lately. But you've got to find out who is. Who are doing the different sports teams, college teams. And if there are D2 teams, Division II teams that are playing like Christian Brothers, where are those teams staying? I'm going to guess there's not a lot of D2 and certainly D3 teams staying in hotels overnight. They just can't afford it. But I would check into it anyway. The next thing I would do, and I hope you're writing this down and I hope you're listening, whoever submitted this question, I would talk to Wayne Tabor, who's in charge of the American Hotel Association for the city of Memphis. Wayne Tabor, T-A-B-O-R. Wayne knows everything and anything that's happening in Memphis, especially downtown. And if you need someone to help you set up that meeting to have a cup of coffee with Wayne, I'd be delighted to. The next person I would talk to is Cindy Lewis. Cindy Lewis is a DOS, Director of Sales downtown at the Indigo. She's been to a few hotels. She knows the market. She'd be willing to sit down with you and tell you where all the business is, all right? You've got to pick the right location. I won't go into belabor that because I know you know that. You've got to find the absolute best location. And then you personally need to work at a first-class hotel to get the experience or the kind of class that you want. If you want best in class, if you want world class, whatever class you want, you've got to be able to work in that kind of a hotel in this market and make mistakes for those people that you won't make for yourself, all right? I hope that answers your question. How are we doing on time? We got a half an hour. All right, next question. After running my world-renowned company, what is my focus for fresh revenues? So let's talk about why I sold that world-renowned company. I like how you put that. It was 2006. And remember, the most important thing to me was to be out in the marketplace. I'm sitting with our best clients. I'm sitting with new prospects, and I'm asking them what their pain points are. Where do you need help? What can we do to help you fix things? How can we help you maximize opportunities in addition to what we're already doing for you? Kinds of questions. And they would answer it. And what I was hearing in 2006 was they were asking us and other training companies to build their DNA, not my DNA, their DNA into our program, to brand it with their brand, not just a logo, but heart and soul of the content. And my company wasn't equipped to do that. We developed a program. And if you bought our program, and there were many years where 99% of the people we talked to that called us up or approached us first, we closed the deal. We had a program, we had a process that nobody else had to reinforce the training. And as a result, we could guarantee the results. Nobody was doing that. And to this day, I only know one other company that guarantees like we do in terms of the results. And if they don't get it, they don't get paid. It happens to be Red Rover Marketing based in downtown Memphis. We have a strategic partnership with those guys. They're the only other company I know of that guarantees success. So go back to 2006. So the market was changing, the market was shifting. And I was trying to change my big company into being a lot more customized. And it was like turning the Titanic. The company was too big to do that swiftly. So it took about a year to figure out and make it palatable for me to sell my company to my partner who ran the day-to-day operation. So it took us a whole year. We closed the deal on June 1st, 2007. And if you remember what happened in 2008, the market absolutely crashed. They lost half their business. And I don't know if we would have lost half our business if I was still there, but I know we would have lost a significant amount. So you would have thought I had a crystal ball. I didn't. I shifted to what the market said they needed and designed a company, Fresh Revenues, took 20 of those people from Signature with me, Fresh Revenues, and everything we do is customized. Everything we do has the client's DNA built in. We co-brand with them and we build their heart and soul of their company into the training process and into the content. So that's why I changed and when we changed, all right? Let's see. Next question. When someone says Fresh Revenues, what do we want them to think of and what is the culture I'm desiring? So if it was just one word I'm limited to, I want people to say the word, when they say Fresh Revenues, their first thought is revenues. These guys help us drive top line. Now, we do 4 things in our training. We focus on 4 things. 1, revenue generation. 2, service. How do we make the service levels best in class, even world class? How do we do that? Number 3, how do we get the right kind of culture to support the service and selling that we're trying to accomplish? And the last is we do leadership training. We train leaders how to be better leaders. Typically in today's environment, I see a lot of managers. They're managing day by day, minute by minute, and that needs to be done. But at the same time, a piece of their life needs to be focused on leading the company, all right? So when someone thinks Fresh Revenues, I want them thinking revenue generation. And when they hire us, they get service, they get culture, they get leadership. So it's all part of the revenue generation, all right? The 2 questions, actually 4 questions from 2 people that came in this morning. How did you even think of starting this business? So I didn't plan on having a training company. My vision was I'm going to start a single entrepreneurial enterprise in the spare bedroom of my house located in Collierville, Tennessee. My wife is pregnant with our first child. What intelligent human being would start a new company with a baby on the way? I evidently wasn't that smart, and it's good that I wasn't, because if I was smart, I probably would have been afraid to do it. So here I am, she's pregnant with our child, 11 months, about to have a baby. I'm starting a new company in late November when there's no business. And the vision was real simple. I'm gonna go into hotels, and after the course of a week, I'm gonna sit down with the owners of the management company, or both, and I'm gonna tell them all the business they don't have. And over the course of the next 12 months, with me coming into your hotel 1 week out of every month, you're gonna have $1 million worth of that business. There's $2.5 million here, you're gonna have $1 million of it. And if it doesn't happen in 12 months, I'm gonna work for free until you do. And if it still doesn't happen, I'm gonna refund every dime you paid me since day 1. That's how sure I am this can succeed. That took a lot of doubt out of the equation with people I was doing business with that didn't know who I was. It's one thing to say, oh, I know this guy, I trust him, but I was doing business with people I didn't even know, okay? So what happened was I did that for 4 years. And if I was still trying to do that today, I'd be a dead person because it's hard work. Picture this. You're leaving your family on a Sunday night, you're flying into a market, you're checking into a hotel, Monday morning, you're meeting all the salespeople and the GM and all the stakeholders. You go and do your assessment over the course of a week. You sit down with those stakeholders, the GM and the owner, and you get them sold on the idea and how we're going to execute and who we're going to execute with. Now, 30 days later, I'm back there for a week making sales calls. I would take all their individual people, anyone selling the hotel, out on sales calls with me, because my pitch was, I'm going to train your people how to sell so you don't need me after a year. They're going to know what they're doing. And I believed that at the time. It didn't happen. If somebody's really good at revenue generation, some competitor is going to come along and make them a much better deal. So they're probably going to wind up stealing that person, or they leave for personal reasons, or they leave because their spouse got a job in a different market. So that part of the equation didn't work out for my clients, but the intention was good, right? I'm going to train these people, and at least for as long as they were there, they were making much better sales calls because they saw me doing it, all right? So I was so busy in year 4, I remember getting a call in like October, and I answered my phone. Don Farrell. Hey, Don, it's Greg so-and-so up in Asheville, North Carolina. Hey, Greg, how you doing, man? Good, good, good. Hey, buddy, I need your help. I've got these 5 hotels here, and we're tanking, man. We need business real bad. How soon can you get in here? Now, this is 1990, right? I started the business in 86. 1990, we're just starting to get computers in 1990. I'm using a paper daytimer, and I'm going through pages in my daytimer. Okay, December, no. January, no. February, April, Greg, I could see you in April. I was booked every single week until April. And he goes, April? I can't wait till April. I'll go bankrupt by then. No, I need to see you sooner. I said, well, Greg, what do you want me to do? I'm booked every single week out of the year except Christmas week. And he's like, Christmas week? He says, Don, Christmas is on a Thursday. What if you came in Sunday night and you trained my people on Monday, Tuesday, and Tuesday night you're home? And I don't know what made me do it, but my daughter's like 3 years old at the time, 4 going on 4 maybe. And I said, I'll make you a deal, Greg. If you fly my daughter and me into your hotel and you treat her like a princess, I'll do it. And he did. And it was so much fun. And for the next 10 years, when kids do book reports, it was all about that trip for her. It was pretty cool. So when I was thinking of starting a business, it was purely going into hotels, showing them, not telling them, how to increase their business. And in the process, thank God, in the 4th year, something happened by accident. And that accident was, I got a call from a guy who owned a hotel in a destination market in Florida, and he was losing $1 million a year. And if I couldn't help him, then he was going to have to turn it back into the bank. Now, when you get a phone call like that, you're the guy's last hope. So I went into the hotel. They didn't have any meeting space. They didn't have any salespeople. They had just gotten a front desk because the front desk used to be the guard gate 3 miles up the road. You checked in with the guard. You can imagine what that process looked like. And you drove literally 14 miles an hour because you'll hit a duck or two if you don't. And you finally get to the hotel and you get into your room. And it's a destination market in Florida, so you think the colors are going to be pink and aqua and all those colorful colors that Florida has. No, this hotel was brown and cream. It could have been in Gary, Indiana, and it would have fit, you know? So it didn't feel like a destination hotel. They had limited bullets in their gun, didn't have meeting space or salespeople. And oh, by the way, they were located a half a mile from the beach. So no wonder they're losing $1 million a year. Literally, by the end of the 2nd day, I've already decided there's no way I can make this guy $1.8 million top line, $1,800,000 top line, and have $1 million flow through. There's no way I can do it over the course of a year. I'm not sure I could do it in 2 years. He just doesn't have enough ammunition. And as I'm walking the hallway, looking at P&L statements, profit and loss statements. Now, take a time out. I'm not a profit and loss guy. I'm a revenue generation guy, but I'm that desperate to see where I can help this guy save money in addition to make money. And it may not be $1 million, but here's how much he can make. And literally in the process of walking the hallway and looking at those P&L statements, I heard a reservation agent, staff of 1, who wasn't there yesterday on Monday because she was sick. So when somebody called the front desk and said, hey, I want to talk to someone about making a reservation, the front desk said, call back tomorrow. This is a hotel losing $1 million a year. Call back tomorrow. Well, do you think these people call back tomorrow? No, they didn't. They called someone else, okay? So here it is Tuesday. I'm in the hallway late afternoon reading these P&L statements, and I hear this still sick person say something like, no, half a mile. No, we don't. Okay, thank you. Next call, next call, next call. It felt like 30 calls over the course of 10 minutes. Everything was no, half a mile. I walk in there and I find out after many hours of spending time with her that they receive as many as 180 reservation requests a day, and they're converting less than 10%. And the biggest obstacle is we're not on the beach. So I had to come up with a solution that said, you know what, you don't want to be on the beach, believe it or not. So the hotel was situated so that it faced the bay, and there really wasn't a beach. But the hotel had what I call verandas. They weren't patios. They were full out verandas. They were 15 feet out. They were probably 20 feet long. It was the nicest thing about the hotel. So we came up with a story. This gal's name was Nancy. And I said, Nancy, we can't keep telling people, no, we're half a mile away, because the next question is no, they don't want to do business with us. So if someone says or asks, are you on the beach, which is their first question, your answer is, let me ask you something before I answer your question. What's that? Have you been to our beach before? And whether the answer was yes or no, we had the same response. No, you haven't. Okay, let me tell you. The beach is great, but it's really, really noisy at night, which it is, okay? People are partying, doing barbecues, making noise till the wee hours of the morning. So what you might want to consider is this. We can provide you the following, and she would do benefit, benefit, benefit. We could provide all of this at my hotel, and you can wind up your day on your veranda with a bottle of champagne overlooking the bay, with the porpoises coming in to feed. Now, quick time out there. When she was showing me the hotel, I'm a city guy, so I'm standing on this veranda, and I see the water bubbling, and I'm like, oh, is that piranha? Because I don't know any better. And she's like, where the hell are you from? Those are porpoises, you idiot. Oh, wow, that's romantic. Porpoises looking over, you know, cocktail at night. So Amanda, are you there? Oh, I see your face.
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I wasn't on mute. I was trying to be a fly on the wall.
That's all right. You like to be seen. All right, to finish my boring story. So she would tell these people, we're gonna provide a bicycle built for two, tricycles for your kids, and you're gonna bicycle that half a mile. You're gonna eat lunch on the beach. We're gonna provide the lunch, and you're gonna bicycle on back, and you're gonna have your cocktails on the veranda. Well, her conversion rate went from under 10% to about 80%. She was worth about $700,000 to $800,000 of the $1 million I needed. So I took the deal, and we achieved the goal. But what happened was I changed my company as a result of that one experience that happened by accident. And that is, we developed a program to help reservation people, be it at the front desk or in an office, be a lot more successful. To this day, I thought way back then in 1986, 87, 88, I thought maybe we would have 2 years of shelf life with this kind of a program. And I was wrong. To this day, you've got so many hotel operators that don't handle reservation requests the right way. Their CRS doesn't handle it the right way. They got the wrong protocols, including Hilton. Sorry, Amanda. So as a result, we still do some of that training. But the bottom line here is I would never have done that unless I experienced that at that hotel. So that's when I became a training company. All right. Where and how do you get your ideas? Real simple, from my clients, from my prospects. I ask them what their pain points are. Now, you've probably heard the word pivoting a lot. If you haven't, pivoting is, here's an example, probably the best way to do it. My phone rings 2.5 months ago. And this woman says to me, asks me, hey, Don Farrell, I saw you speak at so-and-so conference, and I need you to help me change the protocols in my contact center. Okay, tell me more. We have 600 seats, and I'm moving every one of those 600 individuals into their homes. So we're in the process now of changing our software, coming up with protocols on the hardware, and all the stuff that goes into the operating. I need you to develop a training program and distance educate every one of these 600. What do you think? And because I'm thinking pivoting, I said two things. I said, number one, we can do that. Or here's option B. How expensive is it to have those 600 people? Oh, it's crazy, man. The wages are out of line. The benefits are crazy. The turnover is awful. We're constantly having to find new people, typical contact center environment. I proposed to her that I would find these individuals located all throughout America, and we would take the reservations. Why? Because who better to take a reservation than the people that train this stuff? Us. So she went, wow, I never thought of that. All right, let's proceed down that path and see if we can make it happen. So we're in the potential right now of still closing that deal, which could probably be a $2 million deal a year. And she saves a lot of money in turnover and everything else that we worry about. And we've got those kinds of contacts all throughout the country. So we're not going to have a tough time finding those people. It's just a matter of getting them on board and the protocols the right way and having us develop the right culture to keep those people in place. So what made you pick this career? The truth is, let's just say, how did I get into hospitality? There was an ad in the paper for a maitre d'. Now, I was mowing lawns for a living. So maitre d' sounded really sexy compared to mowing lawns. So I got dressed up in my only suit, a polyester suit, by the way, and went to the front desk of that hotel, and I probably sounded like this. Hi, hi, can you tell me who I would talk to about this maitre d' position? And I believe in fate. What happened was the accounting gal was at the front desk. She hardly ever went to the front desk. Her name is Mary Martin. I'll never forget her. She looked at me and she said to herself, she told me this later, here's a guy who wore a suit for an interview. Even back then, people weren't doing that enough. So she felt compelled to come out from behind the desk and walk me to the kitchen and the office where the food and beverage director was. Typically what they did was they said, here's an application, fill it out, somebody will get back to you, okay? She didn't do that. She sent me right back to those guys. Now, she leaves me. They've all got their back to me in this tiny office, food and beverage office. You had the food and beverage director, you had the assistant there, and you had a third person, I don't know who it was, and they're looking at blueprints. And I said, excuse me. And they turned around and they said, what do you want? I'm here to be your maitre d'. This food and beverage director got like 1 inch from my face and he's screaming at the top of his lungs. You don't even know what a maitre d' is. Why do you people waste my time? And I didn't hear anything after that, but he's still screaming. And I'm looking for the nearest exit, get the heck out of there. And as he gets done, and I'm sprayed with his spittle because he was that close, screaming at me, as I'm heading to the next exit, nearest exit, somebody grabbed me from behind. It was the assistant food and beverage director, and he turns me around. And he says, do you want a job? And I said, yes, I do. And he said, come back tomorrow, you'll have a job. So I punched in the next day. I was a pot scrubber. And by the way, I did eventually become a maitre d'. But the guy was right. I didn't know what a maitre d' was, but he handled it wrong, obviously. And that guy was fired about 30 days later because that's how he treated everybody. The assistant became the food and beverage director. I'll never forget this guy as long as I live. Scott Huth was his name. And I call him once in a blue moon to continue to thank the guy for helping me get into this industry. So it's kind of funny how you find your way into it. All right. All right. Do I ever get tired of doing this? That's a great question. I would tell you when I had kids that were younger and lived at the house, I got tired of it every Thursday because I couldn't wait to see my two kids who I love more than anybody in the entire world. Couldn't wait to see these guys, all right? So every Thursday, I didn't love the job. Every Sunday night, I loved it again because I love what I do. I love being with clients. I love being with prospects. I love helping people. I love seeing people learn and grow. When we do our training, it takes a while to get this good, but as a facilitator, and Amanda will tell you this because she's done it, you can stare in the eyes of every single person sitting in front of you. Let's say it's 30 people, and you know who's getting it and who's not, who's finding religion. That motivates you to keep going, especially the people that are not getting it. You try harder, you work harder. For those people that are getting it, you really give them what they need, all right? I love that part of what we do for business. So way back when I had kids living at home, Sunday night, couldn't wait to get out there. Thursday night, couldn't wait to get home. Sunday night, back out again. Now that my kids are grown, one's an attorney, one's a business owner, it's 24/7 fresh revenues, and I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love being busy. I love doing what we do. So today, I don't get tired of it. Never get tired of it, all right? Chris, I think we've got 10 minutes, right?
Yes, Don, you have 10
Anybody
minutes.
else to ask a question? And Ash, I think the way you wanted to handle it was they can unmute themselves, only that person, and ask the question. All right? Anybody's got one, go ahead and ask.
They can easily unmute themselves. It's not a big
Okay.
deal. Yeah.
I can't see everyone right now, so I can't tell who's raising their hand, who's going to ask. So they just have to start talking. Nobody? Come on now. Landon, you have another question? I can see you. Landon, you're busted.
Sorry, I was trying to think of one. So I do have a question for you regarding about like, did you ever travel like to different regions, like a lot?
All right. So not only regions. So I think I've been to every state in the union and have conducted business in every state. But the U.S. Navy is our largest client. They have 86 hotels and they just picked up another 28. So there are over 100 hotels that we train globally. So we're in Korea, we're in Japan, we're all over the world, wherever they have a base. And these hotels are 1,000 rooms, 2,000 rooms. These are big houses, big hotels. And it's a lot of fun. And theoretically, and it's happened to some degree, but I want it to happen to a greater degree, is that we become recognized for doing great things in their hotel. And all of a sudden their golf course people want training and their bowling alley people want training. These are 3-star resorts, golf courses, theaters, restaurants. I mean, it's a mini city these bases are on. We trained firemen, we trained after school care. So that is my dream, our hope, that it branches out into other things, but it's global and that makes it fun. People who get to travel internationally with our company, I mean, that's a kick in the pants, that's great fun. So they'll spend, let's say, a week training, they'll take another 4 or 5 days and go vacation wherever they are. It's kind of cool. Answer your question, Landon?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Amanda, do you have a question?
Don, I had a feeling that you're going to put me on the spot, and in full
So you
disclosure,
have a question.
Well, can we back up a minute?
Sure.
Who is Amanda?
Oh, Amanda, who are you?
who am I? That is a great question. Well, actually, you guys probably know Suzanne Zaney. She's the professor for our adjunct for hospitality classes, and we just happen to be spouses, and I've worked closely with Don in the past, so that's, and we're just using my phone. But actually, Susie has a question for you, Don.
Susie.
All right, Don.
Hey.
So
Hi,
I have
Susie.
hey, Chris. So I have 2 classes of seniors this year, and we're figuring out what jobs they should really be looking at when hospitality has taken a pretty big hit. Some of the things that we've been discussing is insurance and benefits, or car rentals, sort of expanding our normal intro level positions.
Yeah.
What other kind of positions do you think our students should be looking at as they go out into the world now?
Good question. So probably starting 6, 7 years ago, I was getting more calls from traditional non-hospitality companies. Here's an example. Guy owns 300 gas stations, all Shell stations throughout the South, okay? And he calls me up. He has a brand new concept of his convenience store, which is where they make all their money. They make a little bit on gas. They make a lot on the convenience store. So they're trying to really position this convenience store to be the answer for the next 20 years. And he's developing this concept, and he built 18 of them, and he moved 18 general managers into these best locations. And then he calls me. And he said, how do you think it's going, Don Farrell? And I said, well, it must not be going real well, or you wouldn't be calling me. He said, exactly right. They have something that you've got, and they need it real bad. Well, he had me stumped. I don't know what he's talking about. What do I have that they need? He said, you've got hospitality, man. And he's right. So look at all the industries and businesses that need hospitality, okay? Every single one of them does. Most of us are experiencing mediocre and worse service than we do stellar service. The minority of the service we get today is in the stellar category, is in the really good category. The rest of it falls into average or amiable or whatever it is. Those are the companies that need us. So for us, we've gone into hospitals because that's a lot of hospitality in hospitals, assisted living, nursing homes. Up until COVID, convention centers and arenas, those are big, big clients for us. You go to Notre Dame and you train 800 ushers how to be better ushers, for us anyway. So I would just leave your students with this if it were me teaching your class. First and foremost, there's a lot of ways to make money. So don't make money making your number one goal. Make what you love to do, what you have passion for. Make that your goal. And if you have passion for older people or younger people or whatever it is you're into, focus on that, focus on the hospitality element, and see how you can integrate that into the business. Because people are starving, employers are starving for hospitality people, people that understand how important it is to serve. You and I would rather serve than be served because it's more fun, okay? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think that the most transferable skill I've ever had is being hospitable to other people, and making them feel good and helping them feel good about their position, their role, their, work with me. So yeah. I 100% agree with you.
Good.
Thank you.
And if you want me to hang out with your high school kids, I'd love to. All right, Chris, we have time for how many more? Like another question or two?
You got time for one more, Don, and I've got it if no one else does.
Anybody? All right, Chris, you're up.
Okay, you mentioned, Don, you mentioned the international scope of your business. And where do you find your associates?
So in every single market we go internationally, they speak English. In some countries like Bahrain, I trained in Bahrain. They speak better English than us. But when it comes to understanding our language, even though they speak it beautifully, they're still trying to think in their own language and they lose stuff in the translation. If we go into a market, Chris, where we have that challenge, for example, in Mexico, we have that challenge. So what we would do is we would find an interpreter, or typically they find an interpreter, and it just slows the class down, but you need to have an interpreter. But I'll tell you, that probably happens 1 in 50 classes. So their English is that good. English is taught as a second and third language in these countries. They understand how important speaking English is. So we don't have to find people in those countries. Now, when it comes to reinforcing them, we have a lot of individuals that have different accents and are from that country that are located here that actually make mystery calls, for example, as one reinforcement tool. They'll call in their accent and actually ask questions, and sometimes in their own language. So from that perspective, we find people in the States. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh-oh, it didn't. Give me some more.
Well, I know you're looking for a certain level of expertise and you're looking for a certain background, and because these people need to bring something to the table that shows that they're they're qualified to do the work.
Great question. So let me answer it this way. Whether it's domestic or international, there's three things somebody has to have in order to be able to work with us. And when I owned that first company, it was two. The first two was they had to know their stuff. They had to have worked in that position, because in every single environment, you're going to encounter people that think they know more than you, and maybe they do, but they're not the ones standing up in front of the class, right? And they're going to challenge you. And if you let them challenge you and they run over you, you're going to lose your class. You've got to be able to have the stuff that it takes to convey to people you know what you're talking about. Number two, you have to have the fluff. We're talking about 8-hour training events, Chris. If you don't entertain these people, you're going to lose them, okay? And the average rule of thumb for us that we've learned is you look at the average age of your audience. So let's say the average age right now on this call is what, 23, 24, 22, something like that. Let's say it's 22. You have 22 minutes before you have to get them up physically doing something, some sort of an activity. If you have 5-year-olds, you have 5 minutes. If you have 50-year-olds, you have 50 minutes. So you got to build all that stuff in. So you have to have stuff and fluff, okay? Then we found out that we had people with fluff and stuff, but they weren't organized. They're in their cars driving to their next location, which is 20, 30, 100 miles up the road, and they need to be calling their hotels that they're going to be training 2 days from now, next week kind of thing. You got to be organized to be able to do that. And people that weren't organized, even though they had fluff and stuff, couldn't make it for us. So it had to be somebody who was an organized individual. If they've got those three things and they're people, and their number one reason for doing what they do is because they like helping people, then we'll hire them. We can train them the rest. We can teach them the rest. Great question, Chris.
Well, Don, thanks to you, my friend. We're going to have to cut off.
Chris,
All
could
right.
I just make one comment?
Yeah, Dan, go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, I'm Dan Beasley. I'm working development with the program, but I also seem to think, and from what I hear, is you're looking for people who are flexible, who are not rigid, who have not got everything all set out what they're going to do the next 40 years, but are flexible and will respond to opportunity as it comes to them. Would that be accurate?
That is very accurate. And I'd add to your list, a touch of ADHD is okay. People that don't like the same environment every single day, like me, I love change. I like new things. And if they're like that, they're probably going to be successful. So all the stuff you talked about, put a touch of ADHD in there, and you'll probably have the right hire for us anyway. Okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
I hope
Dan.
everybody got something out of this, Professor. I really do.
Oh, no, Don, you're the best, man. There's a reason you come back every semester.
Yeah, I'm free.
Well, I do have a huge budget.